Hey kids, welcome to Lesson 10, Building an App, Color Sleuth, Step 2 and 3, add checkCorrect button ID and event handlers. This feels like a big step, but it's actually just a few small ones. We'll see some new functionality at the end. What are we going to do? We're going to add a function definition for checkCorrect button ID that contains a console.log message to display the parameter calls setBoard. Here's a little example of the code, and we'll reference this here in a minute. Number 2, we're going to add 4 click event handlers, one for each button, that calls checkCorrect. The event handling function should call checkCorrect when the button ID is pressed. So for button 1, it should look something like this. Testing. Once you've added this code, you really should see some changes. When you click on the buttons, you should see console.log message showing what was clicked. The board should change every time you click a button, and the console message showing the correct answer for each new board. And we have another example there. So this seems like a lot of work, but really we're going to do these two things. The first one is we're going to make a new function, and this function is going to be called checkCorrect. And that displays checking plus the button ID. And you can see I have some examples down here what it looks like. Then it's going to set the board, and that's another function. So it looks like anytime this function's run, it's going to reset the board. So that is pretty interesting. How's that going to happen? Well, we're going to add 4 event handlers, one for each button, that call checkCorrect. And that is on the event button 1 is clicked, it's going to run the above function. So that means if I click on right now, it looks like button 2 is the different one. It will check button 1 against this, and it'll say checking plus the button ID. And then that will check against the display we already have for the correct one. So it looks like we're displaying 2 different things there yet. We're not telling whether or not it is right. All we're doing at this point is creating another function that will check to see what we pressed. Does it sound fun? Well, let's go ahead and dive into our code here and make this happen. I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and I'm going to start off by doing the first thing here, and it's adding the function. So the function, we can go over to our functions and drag one in over here. And this function is going to be called checkCorrect. And the ID for that is going to be the button ID. What's going to happen in this function? Well, the console.log is going to happen. It's going to come down here, and it's going to display checking, and then a string of button ID. Semicolon after that, and then we want to run setBoard again. Now, right now, it doesn't really know what to do with that. What we have to do is we have to add these event handlers, and that's what it's going to tell it to do. So it's going to say, hey, if button 1 is clicked, then you're going to go to this checkCorrect function. And this checkCorrect function is looking at the button ID here, and it is checking against that. Before that can work, we really need to call that function. So we could do this in one of 2 places. I like keeping my functions down here, so this is going to be my checkCorrect function. And I think up top here, I'm going to add my call to correct. And in this one, this is going to be one of my on events. So I'm going to drag out a on event here. What event? Well, when button 1 is clicked, I want to run checkCorrect on button 1. Oop. Spell it right though. Check correct. Now, that is just done for button 1. So if I run it right now, let's hit reset, run. The correct one is button 2. So if I click on button 2, nothing happens. If I click on 1 though, you saw the correct one is button 1. So it's checking button 1, clicked on button 1, all right? Let's try that again. The correct one is button 1. So it's displaying that console.log message from the set board function first. So that's what it is. It's already telling you what's correct. All you're doing is checking what the user is clicking. So if I click 2, it's saying the correct one is a button, or checking button 1, which is what I clicked. We need to do this for all 4 buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some copying and pasting here. And I'm going to do the events. And I got to change this because that's just button 1. I need to change button 2 in each of them. So I'm checking against 2. And the third one, that's 3. We need 1 more. And this is 4. Get rid of our debug console here. So now on the event, button 1 is clicked. It's going to check correct against button 1. And we should get a display that looks something like this here. I got that out of 1. Let's try again. So let's run it. The correct one is button 2, which it is. So if I click on it, it says correct one is button 2. Checking button 2. There we go. We got that one right there. So we got the checking and the checking. Let's take out this display down here from our on function real quick. And let's just see what it looks like. So I'm just going to control, copy it, and delete it for a second and just see if this looks any different. So we hit run. We don't see anything displayed here when we click checking button 3. Without that other one, it doesn't check against it. All it's doing is just telling me which one. Button 3, button 3 again. That's how it's looking. So we need this display in here. It looks like our code is working as intended. So what is happening in our code? Well, it is displaying the correct one, and that's from our function before. And what it's doing now is it's checking to see what button the user clicked and displaying that one. Right now, only way we can check to see if they clicked the right one is to look down and see if the previous one is correct or not. I think our code is running exactly like we should. We added a function for checkCorrect ID here, and we added 4 event handlers. When we click on it, it tells us what we clicked and which one the right one is. I think that's all code.org wanted from us. Let's see if they want anything else. Nope. Good job, kids. I know this was a confusing one, but you did a great job. Okay, I'll see you on the next lesson.